Okay, with Lisa Drupsteen, Like Mother is the short film, played Chicago Feedback Film Festival. Really interesting film. It's about breaking the patterns. I think people can really relate to this comedy about
Mhm.
somebody who's, we all are nature nurture. We're all kind of a spawn of our parents, and there's a lot of bad habits.
Mhm.
And some of them, not
100%.
all of them, but and we have to break some of those patterns that, and then because they keep repeating and repeating and repeating, I guess, right? So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think kids have a tendency as they grow older to either go one way or the other. They either follow those patterns and fall victim to them or work really hard to become the opposite in terms of role model or parenting figure. And first of all, I'm so glad you got the theme of the movie. So
Yeah,
thank
I get
you.
it. I get it.
Yeah.
But basically it's like so, but it's a comedy. So you're there to entertain us through laughter, right? So
Yeah, I wanted to take this idea of these patterns that get passed down and just
yeah.
find a completely absurd way of telling that story and finding the humor in it. Because at the end of the day, we're all human. And I do have to emphasize, my parents are not narcissists. They are wonderful human beings. I know a lot of writers come from a place of truth, but like I said, I magnified this for the purpose of comedy. I love my mother so much. So, Mom, if you're watching, love you.
No problem. So who is the lead actress in this film?
So the lead actress is myself. She's a wonderful actress. I love working with her. She's great. Yeah, I come from a background mainly of acting, more so in theater. And then when I switched roles and got into film, I was like, well, it's the easiest way to schedule when you're scheduling yourself. So just throw
Yeah.
yourself in there.
But it must be difficult to you're in every scene, you're in every moment, you're the arc of the film, and you're also directing the film as well. So how do you tackle two extremely difficult jobs at the same time?
It's a really good question, and it's definitely a process that I'm constantly learning from because this is my third film now that I've directed myself. And it, I think the best thing to remind myself, it's okay to slow down and to factor that into when you're creating a shooting schedule. Don't try to cram too much in one day so that you have the flexibility to take a step back, rewatch certain takes, and really just make sure you got what you needed because it is very different from when you're in it and you're acting a scene and you're like, oh, I think I nailed that. You have to be able to put that director hat back on and go with the cinematographer and take a look. And because sometimes I did not nail it, and I'm glad
Yeah.
I watched it back.
But even in edit, you got to make sure you got enough coverage in editing, right? So, and then when you're editing, you got to separate yourself from the character, meaning that your character has to serve the story. So you kind of got to look at yourself as a different being, I guess.
100%. And I think one of the best things I learned early on as an actor is give yourself permission to look ugly. And what I mean by that is make the weirdest faces and don't worry about trying to look like your best self when you're on screen. And like you said, serve the story, serve the character. And so I think when I'm in the editing room, I often end up going for those takes that I think, oh, these are out there. This is the character. She's zany, she's quirky, she's a little, so definitely go with the takes that make that more obvious.
Gotcha. All right, so you're in your bio, it says that you're a ex-creative arts therapist,
Mhm.
writer, director, performer. So what's a creative arts therapist?
So I studied what's called drama therapy, which is a branch of creative arts therapies. So there's art therapy, there's music, there's dance therapy. And so it's a branch of counseling where counselors use the art of these different mediums to help clients work through different goals and explore mental health with the goal of personal growth.
Is it like, because it was a Gestalt therapy? Isn't that kind of the same thing, or that's
There's
different?
there's some overlap for
Yeah.
sure, but it is a different sect of therapy, definitely.
And so, but your ex, you don't do it anymore?
I don't. No, I when COVID hit, it really illuminated what my next goals in life were. And for me, I wanted to pursue more of the creative and the writing and I had actually produced for the first time a musical and wrote a musical, and we were about to launch that live. It was a stage production. And on the other hand, I had just launched a young adult center, which has been one of my career goals for a long time as a drama therapist. And that was open for one day. COVID shut it down. And then my play was 3 weeks away from opening. COVID shut that down. And that was like a real eye-opening. I was grieving that play way more than this young adult center. So I was like, it might be time to pass the torch and have someone more emotionally available take on that role while I be selfish and go make comedy.
And that's what you're doing now.
That's what I'm doing now.
You haven't
Yeah.
turned back.
Sorry, say that
You
again.
haven't turned back.
No, not a day. Not a day has gone by. I'm so grateful for that chapter of my life, and it was I take forward a lot of what I learned and a lot of my experiences. And even in this short, like Mother, you can see that I did a lot of work with clients about attachment styles and their relationship with their parents and how that can influence us. And so you'll see in a lot of my work that's kind of ingrained into the writing.
Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like it's storytelling is like the psychology of human nature in many regards. Well, good storytelling, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love it. And for me, I made the joke about being selfish, but I find that writing and telling stories and sharing stories with community is another way of connecting with people and having them feel heard and validated. And it's just kind of a shift in terms of what I do and the mediums I use. But at the end of the day, that's my goal, is to share stories people can relate to and maybe gives them a little bit of joy and lift a bit of weight off of people's shoulders, because that's the art of comedy, and that's why I do it. So
Okay, so tell me about let's talk about the other cast members. Do you have two? Do you
yeah,
have the boyfriend and the mom? Where did you
yeah.
find?
So Michael Hendel, who plays Bobby, is my husband.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we met at the Second City Film School, and I love working with him. It's always such a delight. We both love comedy, and it's just so comfortable. We already have that baseline for, for our relationship. And so just being on screen with him is always just so playful and experimental and fun. And so that's where I found him. I married him. And Dina D'Ameto, who is one of my favorite people, we met in community theater when I was 13 years old in Oakville, Ontario, Canada.
Yeah,
And
I've heard of it. So yeah,
yeah,
I'm in Toronto, so yeah.
I'm sorry. I realize I forget sometimes if I'm talking to someone from the States or Canada, and
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of Ontario, but she's amazing. She's fantastic. We just did a show together after not seeing each other for a very long time. And for me, I was like, this had been a script that had kind of been on the shelf for a little while. And when I did the show with her, I was like, oh, I gotta bring this script out of commission, because I just knew I would love to work with her, and she friggin' nailed it. I love her so much. She's typically a stage actress. She does a lot of live shows. And I know recently she started dabbling in radio shows, like radio plays, and a little bit of film work, but oh, she's just fantastic.
So you're like her demeanor,
Yeah.
like it's like she has crazy makeup. She has
Yeah.
like a crazy like. Did you guys do this on purpose? Like the kind of like
Yeah.
I call crazy her up. Is that a way to describe it?
Absolutely. Oh, we
Okay.
had so much fun. And I was also the makeup artist. It's funny because the young actress Olivia, who played young Judy in the film
Yeah.
for the flashback scene, so professional. One of the most professional little actresses I've ever worked with. And she arrived, the mother scenes were filmed at my parents' townhouse. And when she arrived with her mother to the set of this short film, here I am doing the makeup, doing the hair, setting up the camera, doing everything. And the
Yeah.
mom's like, oh, you do everything. I'm like, oh yeah. So to answer your question, Oh, we had so much fun with the makeup and the costume for the mom role because we wanted the external to match the internal, which is just pure chaos. And it
Yeah,
was,
no, there's people like that in the world where
yeah,
they're like clown. They have clown makeup. I don't want to
yeah,
be like a jerk, but basically,
no,
but
they
it's like,
exist.
what's going on with
Absolutely.
that person over there with the clown
Yeah,
makeup? And it's like they're generally a little bit off kilter, I guess.
a little bit off the rocker, and it is oh, so much character inspiration, definitely.
So okay, so your character like is clingy. I guess that's the best way to put it, right? So you're looking for the man, and you have this kind of, and were you worried a little bit that like in today's world, I know it's kind of a strange question, but that
Oh,
this character was like not representative of the female species in a proper tone, I guess.
oh, that's interesting. Um, I So my initial instinct is no, just because that never crossed my
Sure.
mind.
Yeah.
Because I do think the female species is quite diverse and it's a spectrum
Yeah.
and
No,
like
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and but I do think it's a valid and important question, especially in today's climate. But in terms of this character, another passion of mine is writing flawed female characters. Because in a way, I think that's kind of undoing and unpacking a lot of the previous feminine stereotypes
Yeah.
in film and TV, where they played the perfect kind of sidekick and like we're amazing and didn't do anything wrong. And I love writing messy women because women are complex and complicated, and to have a complex, messy woman as the protagonist, like to me, there's nothing more like powerful than that. And
But
yeah,
this is just me being very general, but being like from a certain generation where like the
yeah,
generation before that, like say my parents, for example, the
mm,
mom, like I said, I'm being general. The mom's kind of
yeah,
like the first priority for my daughter is to get married, to get a man and get married. That's like because for generations that was their priority, like a lot of people's priority, right? Like that was their job, so to speak, is
yeah,
to get a man and get married, I guess, right?
yeah, absolutely. And you know, I can speak from personal experience that, you know, as a young woman growing up, we're still faced with that
Yeah,
stereotype and that kind of infiltrates our minds. And I've been in situations similar to Judy where you just oh, there's like this desperate desire to feel loved and to be seen. And I think what we're starting to realize, or women are starting to realize, people are starting to realize, is there's so many ways to do that in a healthier and more like diverse way. So in our female friendships, in our even male friendships. And so to develop that strong sense of self, and then you can find a very healthy, balanced relationship. And so again, Judy's path is very different because her mother, you know, got divorced because of toxic behavior. And then her stepdad is around, but her mother uses very unhealthy ways to get that validation from men, and we see Judy's repeating those patterns because
yeah,
that's what she ended up seeing. And
yeah.
so again, the theme is really generational behavior being passed down. And yeah.
Yeah, it's the difference between like needing something and then like, or something is good for me, right? So like,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's her way of I want to feel loved, but she never got the tools or a healthy example of how to do that and how to find that.
Yeah. And you're
Yeah.
using this as like in a comedic way because she's like way over the top, right? So
Oh yeah. Oh, bonkers. Like this mother. Come on. She names fish after her ex-husband so she can
yeah,
get empathy. It's just, it's so zany, and I wouldn't have it any other way. That's a big part of what I do is I take, like I mentioned at the beginning, I take ideas and I'm like, what is the most ridiculous version of how to tell this story?
yeah.
Just go for it. Because it's more fun that way.
And then there's the argument that like once you reach a certain age or a certain sense of maturity, you're responsible for your own actions. Like enough of like
Hmm.
enough of blaming the mother, right?
Exactly.
It's like
Exactly.
you got to figure it out yourself, right? Like, so you're alive, you know what I mean? You're wounded but not damaged. Maybe you're a little bit damaged, but you can still function, I guess, right?
Absolutely. And I think one of the best phrases I learned in my training as a therapist was there's always capacity for repair. And it takes work and you got to roll up your sleeves. But at the end of the day, like you said, there's only a certain amount or threshold where you can keep blaming your upbringing or the way you were raised. And yeah, poor Judy. I think she's got a lot of work to do. That's for sure.
So, but then there's the new argument that, yeah, I hope you don't mind talking about this, is that the new argument is that the new generation is that basically just separate from your parent, right? Like before
Hmm.
that would be impossible. You can't, you have like your family's your family, but like if she's toxic, even though that's your mom or your dad, you separate from them, I guess, right?
Yeah. And I've heard this and ooh, like I said, I this isn't something specifically I can speak to. And I think any comments I make are coming from a place of pure privilege and ignorance. But I have heard that as well, that sometimes people with narcissistic parents or with narcissistic traits, that is the decision they have to make is to make a cold turkey cut of that relationship. And I can't imagine that must be really, really tough. And people are judged for it. Um,
Yeah.
and that's hard. I
But
can't imagine.
it's becoming more common, I guess. Like
Mhm.
yeah, in the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, it could be because of social media and people are here seeing themselves in other people's stories and getting more support
Yeah.
and yeah, it's
If you ever
quite
like go into the rabbit hole of Reddit,
oh yeah,
um,
you'll
there's
you'll
all
find
that's what like half the stories are about, like toxic relationships, and people are like, you get away from that person, blah blah blah, right? So
yeah,
like,
absolutely. It's actually really funny. My husband just pitched a short film to me today about that, about the Reddit loophole and about relationships, and that's so
oh
funny.
wow, okay, small
Yeah,
world. So yeah.
very small world. But yeah, ooh, relationships.
So let's talk about the tone of your film. Like I got a little serious there, but tone wise, like I said, we said at the beginning, like it's got to be a comedy. So it's like that laughter sadness kind of combination where like she's a kind of a sad character,
Yeah.
but you got to still laugh. Like how do you find that when you're filming that tone? Like, or even in editing, I guess you're massaging the edit to make sure
Hmm.
that we're still laughing. I guess, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where I bring in things like the narrative device of breaking the fourth wall and connecting with the
Yeah,
audience and it's funny there's something in drama therapy that's called aesthetic distance, which basically means the more elements you bring in that are fantastical or creative in nature, the less emotionally connected we are to the actual content.
yeah,
And so I think comedy is a great way to do that. So whether it's jokes or, like you said, the tone, breaking the fourth wall, it's getting the audience further from, oh, this is a real drama that I'm watching unfold, and this feels very emotional to watch. Um, and sometimes when people are too emotionally attached to the material, then it's hard to get new perspective on a situation. And so
yeah,
that's why we use comedy. It's like, oh, people are laughing and then they walk away and they're like, oh, wait, oh, I took something away from that. And it's kind
yeah.
of like a sneaky way of injecting that.
But that's easier said than done, right? Like I think people try it, but it doesn't really work. But your film works. So
Thank you. I'm glad. And I'd say that was something I was a little nervous about. That's why at the beginning I was like, thank you for getting the theme of the piece.
yeah,
Because it's a tough balance as a writer to try to develop a script that is not only joyful and playful and fun and comedic, but people walk away having gained something from it. That is always my goal as a writer. I don't want to create comedy just for that empty laugh and then they go on with their lives. If there's like a little grain of something people can walk away with, then that's the goal.
so we send the audience to you in the feedback. What did you think of what the audience had to say about your film?
I just have to say, this was my first feedback festival, and it definitely won't be my last. I think um, before I get specifically to the comments, just in terms of feedback festivals, the festival circuit can be very challenging financially. It's not like there's a lot of money in independent films.
Yeah.
So if your film gets into festivals, I'd say I go to not even 10% of the festivals, right? It's just not financially realistic. And so being able to get this feedback from the comfort of my own home was so helpful as a filmmaker, because I'm used to sending it to mentors or family, and you get a certain type of feedback, but you always tell yourself, oh, this might be a little biased. And so this was, ooh, when I pressed play, I was so scared, but it was really, really validating to know that people got what I was trying to achieve as a writer. And it was very helpful. And I would say I do think they were too nice. There was no criticism, and I want more criticism.
Okay. How about your next film then? We'll like
Yeah.
that for you.
I think everyone should have at least one constructive criticism piece too. Because again, as a writer, it's I just don't want my ego to get too big, You gotta keep me grounded.
Well, yeah, it's independent film. I think that's your egos. I think your ego just stays in check, I guess, right? So,
Yeah, that's true.
so, so what are you working on now?
So what am I working on now? I'm currently in rehearsals for a musical improv performance at the end of this month. So that's like kind of my second passion, is doing live comedy, like improv and musical improv. So that's my little baby on the side. And then on the other side, in terms of film and TV, I just completed a screenwriting course with Mary Ruth Clark in Chicago with the Chicago Dramatists. She's amazing. And she helped me kind of continue to develop a pilot I'm working on for a show comedy called Triple 20, about a young woman who's seeking to start over, and she ends up finding herself in a amateur C division dart league in rural Ontario. And so comedy ensues.
Comedy ensues. So you're based in Chicago now?
My husband is, and I'm currently in Montreal,
Okay.
uh, and we're just waiting out the green card process.
Oh, I
That'll
hope it goes well. So you're
think
going to him, he's coming to you.
I'm going to go to Chicago. He's currently in school, and then we'll see where life takes us.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Well, congratulations on the success of this film. And like I said, I hope to see you again, and we'll talk when you make your next film.
Sounds amazing. Thanks for this opportunity, and nice meeting you.
Yeah, great film, by the way.
Thank you.